Hi, and welcome to my brand new YouTube channel. I'm very excited to see you right here. And in this channel, I want to share more about motherhood, about specifics of living in Switzerland and raising kids here. I'm Nelle. I'm a mom of two myself. I have a boy and a girl, and I live in Switzerland for almost 7 years now. My kids were born here, and I'm also raising them here. And I used to be a full-time working mom. And at the moment, I'm in the pursuit of something new because my company had other plans after I finished my maternity leave. But that's the story for another time. Today, I would like to speak about the childcare situation. How did we manage? What did we do? What did work? What did not work? And how does it work in Switzerland in general for very small kids? So if you are someone who is considering having kids here, or maybe you're pregnant, then congratulations. And then this video is for you. So I'll be covering several things. One would be the kita costs and the structure, what to look out for, how to choose. And then we will go into some alternative options. And in there, I have to dig it into myself. So I will share what worked for us. And then I'll share with you some alternatives and how potentially it might cost. I'm based in Zurich, so all the prices I will be mentioning are relevant to Zurich area. In some other areas, they might slightly differ. Like I know Basel area is a bit cheaper because it's subsidized, but the rest of Switzerland more or less have very similar approach to childcare. When my son was born, and that was 2.5 years ago, which is a bit crazy, I already had a kita spot signed up for him. So one of the first things to consider is to determine where do you want your child to go to childcare and secure a spot as soon as you basically have decided. Because in some instances, especially if you're living in smaller town or maybe in like busy neighborhood, there can be limited spots in childcare. I will call it kita because that's the way it's called here. And sometimes it's not that simple to get the spot. So when I started looking into the kitas at first, I noticed that some of them only had like 2 days per week available or 3 days or something like that. But we wanted to have the full week because we were both working parents. And for us, it was just like natural to send them to kita right away. And so we signed up when I was like 4 months pregnant or something. We already submitted an application, which I know is like very, very early. But that's what we did. And then a few months later, we received a positive reply inviting us for a tour and also the kind of final paperwork. And before you actually submit your applications, it's always nice to know where your child will be going to. Like, how does the kita look? How does the kita function? Like, what is the personnel? What are the customs in there? Because you will learn that many of them are slightly different and they have different approach to childcare in general. Some of the kitas support different languages and they are like bilingual. Others do entirely German or Swiss German in our case. And there are also kitas which are known as Stadtkita. So it's like Zurich subsidized kita, and they are non-profits, so they can be a tiny bit cheaper. Now, when you know you're pregnant and you're thinking, okay, I'll start the childcare, the first question to ask yourself, when do you want your child to start with kita? Most parents start anywhere between 3 months and half a year. It's very standard in here, and it's only natural because maternity leave is very short. It's only 14 weeks. And after that, many moms decide to take some unpaid leave for vacation time, and then they start kitas early, like 4 months, 5 months. With our son, we started at 6 months. With our daughter, we started at 5 months, and it worked perfectly fine. So once you decided like when do you want to start, then you can start reaching out to kitas and asking if they have availability for those dates. And if they do, then you can also be invited for a tour. It's very standard, it's free of charge. You just come over, they show you around, they show you how the kita works, where is like the food situation, the diaper situation, everything. So there are several things to consider when you are going on a tour, and those are the smart questions to ask. So one would be, where is food coming from? Because some ketas cook on site, which I find like super cool. And then you know that your kid will be getting a fresh food every day. Another ketas have catering services. So they would basically order from some provider, which will deliver frozen meals or maybe like somewhere cooked meals, which might be reheated or just served. And that's also fine, but that's just something to consider. Our kita in general has like a centralized kitchen because we go to Stadtkita, and therefore the food the kids receive is delivered directly from like Zurich, I don't know, main canteen services or something. And they do deliver like fresh food every day, which is nice. And they also have a very various menu. But in many cases, ketas offer a very good quality of food. Either it's pre-cooked or it's cooked on site, and your kids will be having some very nice meals. So ketas in general provide breakfast if you bring the child very early. For us, it's like until 7:30. If you bring your child by then your child receives breakfast. If not, then they only get like morning snack, which they call snoonie. It's around 9 o'clock, so it makes sense. And then they receive lunch at around 11:30. And in the afternoon, they only give them snack around 4 p.m., which is called sveri, also something only Swiss would do. And then they give no dinner. So we would normally pick up our kid around 5:30. And then we know that he didn't receive any proper meal after 11 in the morning. Another very important question to ask on the tour is their outdoors policy. Some of the ketas will have a garden, which I find very, very nice because kids can just go outside and play and enjoy the sun and everything. Other ketas, however, will be more restricted on space when it comes to outdoors. And we visited a kita like that, and they just said, we don't have a garden, but we have a policy that we bring all the kids outside every single day, no matter the weather. I found it also super cool because it's only beneficial for the kids to be outside and play outside. But of course, if it's raining, cats and dogs, you don't want them to be all wet and like, I don't know, cold or something. But in most of the cases, they just require proper clothing, and then they are more than happy to be outdoors. The third question you can ask during the tour is about their closing times policy. Like how much of a time per year they do spend on vacation for employees. This is important because we learned it the hard way. When we signed up for a kita, they told us, oh, we are closed in summer for 2 weeks. So we instantly assumed that we don't need to pay for that time, which was not true. So basically our kita is closed for the first 2 weeks of August every single year, and we pay full price for those 2 weeks, and we still have to arrange the childcare or go traveling somewhere, and it's like the peak season, and I mean, you know it. So there are a lot of other ketas which do not do that. They only have like mandatory vacation closing time around like Christmas period or maybe some days around Easter, but that's it. The rest of the year, they are fully functional, they are open, and you can bring your child in and yeah, don't pay for nothing, literally. Other things to consider when you're going to have a tour is to ask about like flexibility. What is their policy on additional days? So if, for example, you can book 3 days per week, can you book additional days on the spot if there is like availability? Can you do some, I don't know, flexible days? Other ketas, they do offer additional childcare days, which I learned also a little bit later. So basically they allow parents to sign kids to come on Saturday, like once a month. At least that kita did it. And then, I mean, it's also nice when you can choose flexibly how much you want to send them and when is it available. So we already covered the meals, the outdoor policy and the vacation policy. Another thing which is important to understand when it comes to Kita is that no refunds are available if your child is sick, and you are not allowed to bring them in if they have fever, if they are feeling like super down, if they're like very low on energy, or they cannot, like, I don't know, interact and play with other kids very well. Then, I mean, a general rule of thumb is fever. I mean, that's very easy to measure, and they can call you if your child becomes feverish. But yeah, also sometimes you would kind of just want to consider if they are not feeling very well, or if they have some sort of like ugly rash or stuff like that. I mean, our son had the foot-mouth disease. So then, of course, they have this period when they say, okay, the fever is down, but then the rash is still there. So you have to wait until like the rash becomes kind of stable, they call it. Or you get a clearance note from your doctor, and then your child can go. So yeah, in our case, we just waited additional days because it was right before those 2 weeks vacation, and we just didn't want to send our child and make somebody else's child sick out of consideration that it will be a holiday season. And I mean, who wants to have a sick child over the holidays anyway? I guess this is one of the most challenging part of Kitas, is to anticipate how much it will actually cost and what is included and like how does it all work. So the first thing to understand, there are basically two cost structures. One is for newborns, like and small kids, another is for toddlers. And in most of the cases, babies pay more because they require additional personnel to look after them. And then when the toddlers are bigger, normally the price changes after 19 months of age. So that's when you can expect the reduction in your Kita bill. For small kids up to 19 months old, I would say the standard price varies anywhere between 130 to 150 francs per day. And for toddlers, it drops anywhere from 125 to 135, something like that. It really depends on the Kita, but most of the Kitas are very open and transparent about their pricing. And you can just check all of those price points online before booking the kid. Also, some Kitas do offer a sibling discount, but I believe that this discount applies only to a single child, not both of them. And also it applies to the cheaper child, which, I mean, from the business perspective, I can understand that. So yeah, and there are Stadtkitas. So they start with the baby's price and they basically continue it. It doesn't change. And it remains at 120 francs per day. So when I say that the pricing is per day, it doesn't actually mean that if you book 3 days and then you have like a shorter month, like February, for instance, and then you send your child per like limited amount of days, then you will pay for those days and those days only. In reality, they do estimate an amount and they do multiply it for a monthly fee. So eventually it kind of evens out. Some months have more days, some months have less. But at the end of the day, it's not based like on the daily calculations, even though they always announce the prices per day, but rather the monthly price. Yeah, but the good part is that you don't have to decide always to choose full days. You can also choose half a days. So you can do mostly the mornings, maybe in the afternoons. I would have to double check on that. But those prices are also very clearly outlined. So if you do like half a day or you do 2/3 of a day, which is also an option, then they will adjust the pricing. But the best thing to do here is to really dive deeper into the price list of specific Kitas that you have in your area, because they will be different. And then when you understand what are your needs, where you want to send them, full week, not full week, how many times, how many meals, all of that, then you can see an estimate, which will be your basically final amount per month for that childcare. When we had a second child, we thought that, sending 2 kids to Kita adds up. Really, if you don't have that big of an income and you don't have a subsidized Kita, then it can basically be equal or even exceed your monthly paycheck, which can come around like 4,500 to 6,000 depending on where you send them to. And in that instances, it's always nice to consider alternative childcare options. And if you have 3 kids or more, then I guess this is probably a big topic for you. Like, how can you manage it better? Because 3 kids in Kita or even in kindergarten plus Hort can basically mean that you are spending on childcare more than you would be earning if you go work full-time. So alternative childcare options include au pair services, nanny services, some Spielgruppen, Waldkitas, and then probably there is something else. And if you have alternative options for childcare, then just let me know in the comments below. I'm all ears because I'm currently in this transition when I am considering, should I do just Kita or should I incorporate some additional things? Because my kids are quite small still, and in many of those Spielgruppe activities, they only accept children who are 2 years or older in age. And also in some Kitas, like those alternative Kitas, so to say, they do require that your child would be potty trained, which is also a big topic. And luckily we just did potty train our toddler, which I'm very proud about. And I will tell about this in the upcoming videos. So yes, when it comes to additional childcare options, au pair is also a very big topic. But then for that, you have to always consider like the living situation and accommodation. So if you have a big house or a lot of space and you're willing to invite another person to live with you, then it can work magically. And then you could also combine it with maybe some decent Kita, or they could also do some pickups for you. And then eventually it can all even up when it comes to the cost. And with those alternative Spielgruppe and Waldkitas, it always depends very primarily on the exact location and situation. So best thing to do is to visit your Gemeindezentrum. Every district, I guess in Switzerland, I don't think it's strictly limited to Zurich in that sense, has those Gemeindezentrum where they have a ton of information about the childcare and support and like different activities that your child can do and participate in. And most of the time they do require like a present parent or a guardian, but then you could just look into those options and analyze what works for you and your family. Another alternative, which I found super nice, is Nanny, because Nanny gives you flexibility and you can just book them on the spot. Also, when your kids are sick and you just don't need to rely on fixed terms and dates. The nanny costs anywhere between, I would say, 25 to 40 or even more francs per hour. I would say a good rate is around 25 to 35, depending on how many kids you have, like how flexible the person is, do they do it full-time or like part-time and stuff. And I found that it works best to arrange directly with the nanny rather than hire an agency or something, just because of the cost. And there are many apps for them and many Facebook groups that you can browse and look for the right person. And my advice on this, don't hesitate to invite them for basically an interview, to give them a tour, to give them like a play date with your child and see how they react, how the child accepts them. And yeah, then just give some time to this idea to settle. And once you find the right person, it can really be a game changer, because then you regain your flexibility and then you can just make arrangements like how many hours do you want to do, when do they come, and how you want to play it, so to say, in the long game. And one more thing I did forget when it comes to alternative childcare, there is this concept in Switzerland called mini kita. So it's basically a mother, most of the time I would say it's a mother who already raises her kids at home, and then she invites other kids to play and to come to their space as if it was a kita. And there is a specific website for this, and I will just put a screenshot somewhere here and you can check it out as well. Their rates are very similar to kita rates, and therefore it's something to consider about convenience. Maybe if you want to do only a couple of hours a day, you could see if those options are more flexible than your local kita, and decide for yourself. So this is one more alternative. I have a feeling that we covered a lot of information today, and I don't want to overwhelm you with all this talk about the cost structures and whatever not. So in the upcoming video, I will be talking about the necessities of kita, like how does it work, what should one bring, what should one prepare, what are the useful products that we found when it comes to kita prep, and like how do we send our kids, like how do we manage logistically. So if that's something that you are interested in, then don't forget to give me a follow, and I will see you in the next videos.